Let me ask you something personal. How many times have you sat in a meeting, a classroom, or a conversation, and felt like your mind was already 3 steps ahead, quietly escaping somewhere else? And how many times did someone look at you and say, "Why can't you just focus?" Here's what nobody told you. That restlessness you've carried your whole life, that inability to fit neatly into the box everyone else seemed so comfortable in, it might not be a flaw. It might be a fingerprint. Psychology is beginning to understand something that changes the entire story. Not every mind was built for the world we're currently living in. And if yours feels like it's constantly fighting the current, there's a reason for that. A real, documented, biological reason. Stay with me. What you're about to hear isn't a diagnosis. It's not a label. And it's definitely not an excuse. It's an explanation. Tens of thousands of years ago, human beings lived in 2 fundamentally different modes. Some minds were built to hunt, scanning, adapting, responding, moving. Others were built to farm, planning, repeating, maintaining, settling. Both were brilliant. Both were necessary. But somewhere along the way, the entire modern world, its schools, its offices, its systems, its schedules, was quietly designed around one type of mind. And if you have the other kind, you've spent your whole life being graded on a test that was never written for you. Here are 10 clues that you have a hunter mind, and that you've been living in a world built for someone else. Most people find quiet calming. For you, it's almost disorienting. When a room gets too still, when a task gets too repetitive, when nothing is happening, your mind doesn't rest. It accelerates. It starts generating its own stimulation because it genuinely cannot function without some level of input. Neuroscience points to a key reason for this. Hunter-type minds tend to operate with a lower resting threshold for dopamine, the brain's primary driver of motivation and engagement. When external stimulation drops, the brain compensates by seeking it internally. This is why you've been called restless, distracted, or difficult to settle. Your brain was simply doing what it was wired to do. It wasn't a discipline problem. It was a design difference. You've probably heard it your whole life. You'd do so well if you could just apply yourself. And the frustrating part? You knew they weren't entirely wrong. Because when something genuinely interests you, when a topic lights you up, when a problem feels meaningful, when the stakes feel real, your focus doesn't just show up. It takes over. Psychologists refer to this state as hyperfocus. It's one of the most misunderstood features of the hunter mind. The attention system isn't unreliable. It's condition-dependent. Give it meaning, urgency, or genuine curiosity, and it performs at a level that surprises even the people who doubted it most. The same mind that drifts in a dull lecture can spend 6 uninterrupted hours building something it cares about. That's not inconsistency. That's a different operating system. Not with clocks. With the feeling of time. A deadline 2 weeks away feels abstract, almost imaginary. But a deadline tomorrow morning? Suddenly, everything sharpens. Your productivity spikes. You get it done, and sometimes you do your best work right there under pressure. This phenomenon has a name in psychological research: time perception asymmetry. The hunter mind tends to experience time as a present-heavy reality. Future events don't carry the same emotional weight until they arrive in the immediate window. For years, people in your life probably interpreted this as carelessness or poor planning. What they were actually watching was a brain that is genuinely wired to prioritize now over later, a trait that, in a world of immediate threats and decisions, was once a survival advantage. You walk into a room and you feel it immediately. The tension nobody's addressed. The forced smile that doesn't quite reach someone's eyes. The conversation that sounds normal but carries something underneath it. You didn't choose to be this perceptive. You just are. Hunters depended on social awareness in ways that farming communities simply didn't require to the same degree. Reading the group who was reliable, who was unstable, where the energy was shifting, wasn't a social skill. It was a survival skill. That same perceptual sensitivity is still running in you today. It makes you an extraordinary reader of people, an empathetic presence in a room, someone others trust without always knowing why. The cost, however, is real. That level of social awareness is also exhausting. You absorb a lot. and you can rarely just turn it off. And every time you did, someone around you worried. Why are you changing careers again? Why can't you just stick with something? But from the inside, it never felt like instability. It felt like necessity. Hunter minds are neurologically responsive to novelty. When an environment, a job, a routine, a chapter of life stops presenting new challenges, the motivation system doesn't just slow down. It signals loudly that something needs to change. This is why you've evolved in directions others haven't. Why you've accumulated skills, experiences, and perspectives across different fields. Why you've started over when staying felt like slowly disappearing. What looked like inconsistency from the outside was actually your brain protecting itself from stagnation. When something goes wrong, genuinely wrong, and the people around you are spiraling, something interesting happens inside you. You get quiet, focused, clear. This isn't a performance. It's chemistry. High-pressure situations naturally elevate dopamine activity in the brain. For the hunter mind, that elevation brings cognitive function closer to its optimal state. The chaos that overwhelms a farmer-style mind actually provides the conditions a hunter mind needs to perform. You've probably wondered if that made you cold or strange or somehow less affected than you should be. It doesn't. It means your brain has a different activation threshold, and urgency is one of the things that meets it. While others approach a problem step by step, building methodically from A to B to C, you tend to arrive at the answer first, and then work backwards to explain how you got there. This can be deeply frustrating in academic and professional settings, where showing your work matters as much as getting it right. Cognitive researchers describe this as nonlinear thinking, a wide-scanning style of mental processing that holds multiple variables simultaneously rather than addressing them sequentially. It's the same style of thinking that allowed hunters to track an animal across unpredictable terrain, adjusting in real time based on incomplete information. Today, it shows up as creativity, as the ability to connect ideas across unrelated fields, as solutions that arrive fully formed and confuse the people who needed to see every step along the way. You've made decisions that looked reckless from the outside, leaps of faith that others advised against, choices made on instinct when the data wasn't complete. And many of those decisions, not all, but many, turned out better than anyone expected. The hunter mind doesn't process risk the way a farmer mind does. For the farmer, stability is the baseline. Departure from it feels dangerous. For the hunter, stagnation carries its own risk. Staying in a situation that's no longer working, waiting for certainty before moving, feels more threatening than acting on good judgment with imperfect information. This isn't recklessness. It's a different model of risk entirely. Your enthusiasm hits fast, hard, and completely. So does your frustration, your excitement, your grief, your joy. People around you sometimes can't keep up with the intensity or the speed at which it passes. Emotional sensitivity in hunter-type minds is linked to the same dopamine dynamics that drive attention and motivation. When the emotional system activates, it activates fully. And when conditions shift, the mind moves on, sometimes before others have even registered that you were affected at all. This can make you seem intense to some people and unfeeling to others, often simultaneously. Neither is accurate. You just experience emotion at a different velocity. For most of your life, you have functioned. You've kept up. You've found ways to make it work. But underneath all of it, there has been a quiet, persistent feeling that you were performing a version of yourself, one that fit the expectations around you, rather than simply being who you actually are. The organized version, the focused version, the patient, structured, consistent version that everyone seemed to need you to be. And no matter how well you performed it, it always took more out of you than it seemed to take out of everyone else. That exhaustion was real, because you weren't just living your life. You were constantly translating yourself into a language that wasn't native to you. Here's what psychology is quietly confirming, and what this video has been trying to say from the beginning. The hunter mind is not a disorder. It is not a deficit. It is not a personality problem that needs to be corrected. It is an ancient cognitive design, one that evolved under entirely different conditions, built for a world that demanded exactly the traits that modern systems struggle to accommodate. Understanding this won't fix every difficulty overnight, but it will change something that matters more than any productivity system ever could. It changes how you see yourself. And when you stop spending your energy trying to become a version of you that was never real, and start building a life that actually works with the mind you have, something shifts. Not everything, not all at once, but the weight of feeling fundamentally wrong, that can finally lift. If this felt like something you needed to hear, you probably know someone else who needs it too. Share it with them. And if you want to understand your mind even further, the next video covers exactly why hunter minds often struggle and quietly thrive in modern relationships. It's already waiting for you.